on the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, moi and Allie.
Welcome. I'm Allie Spooner, and I also write with Affinity, and I've got over 40 published titles now. I touch on many genres from romance to paranormal. I have numerous series in my repertoire, and lately I've focused on doing more standalones and teaching myself to write short stories. That's always been a challenge for me because I sometimes send it to Miss Annette, and she said, more, and that short story turns into a novella and then a full-length novel. So I'm still working on that. I hope you enjoy our podcast and have an opportunity to meet some new authors like we have today, or to learn more about your favorites. We appreciate your support and invite you to visit Affinity Rainbow Publications to check out our books.
And I'm Annette Morey, also with Affinity Rainbow Publications. And I'm not going to go into a big, because, you've heard me, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard the introduction before. So I'll just bypass that and get moving along so we get to know these new authors.
All right. Each month, we'll invite a special guest or guest to join us as we discuss various topics of interest to writers and readers. We'll invite our guest to do a short reading and then follow with questions on the featured topic.
This month, we'll be introducing 3 brand new authors to the Affinity Rainbow Publications family. Livia James, who will be doing a reading from her debut novel, All That Pride. Glenda Poulter, who will be doing a reading from her novel, Never Too Late. And last but not least, Katie Hall, who will be doing a reading from her debut novel, To Autumn.
Following our podcast, we'll upload to a newly created YouTube channel and hope you consider subscribing so you never miss a future podcast.
I have the pleasure of introducing our first new author, Livia James, and she is currently a student at the University of Calgary, taking as many creative writing courses as she can fit into her schedule. She has honed her craft since she was in high school, with her little sister cheering her all the way. She hopes to graduate with her Bachelor of Arts and an embedded certificate in creative writing. All That Pride is her debut novel.
All right, so without further ado, Livia, take it away.
The party doesn't look that enticing when I turn away from Nate and Jenny. Someone's hooked up their phone to a speaker and songs with heavy bass thunder through the crowd. I roll the soda can between my hands, eyeing people who I think might be dancing. It's honestly hard to tell. I turn toward the ocean. The sun bleeds into the horizon ahead of me. By the time I make it to the water, it's set and the sky is a dull violet. I carefully set my soda in the sand and walk into the waves without pause. It's deliciously cool and the air seems so much purer here. I tuck my arms around myself, allowing the waves to slowly bury my feet in the sand. When Mom moved us out here, I was just old enough to understand we were leaving my home and not coming back. 6-year-old me threw a tantrum for the ages, one that must have rivaled the epic screaming fits Lillian frequently has these days when she doesn't get her way. I remember clear as day Mom's exhausted expression that finally got to me. Boxes were piled all over the house, some full and some half full. Mom was the only one packing them. Lillian and Katie were only toddlers, worse than useless, and I was determined to be in the way. Our tiny Texas town was all I had known, and there was something terrifying about moving to mythical California. All I knew was that it was far. I didn't know what to expect, and tiny me was terrified of the unknown. I remember one day, about a month before we left, I got the novel idea to unpack all the boxes that Mom had already packed and prepared for transport. I decided to start in the kitchen for some absurd reason, because in my mind we couldn't move without plates or something like that. But when I got there, I found Mom dozing against one of the boxes. She just looked so tired. Most of my school friends' moms were older than her, and my young, pretty mother had been a continual source of pride for me. But in that moment, she looked old. And I think that's when I finally understood how hard it had been for her when Jeff left us. 6-year-old me kept her reservations about moving to herself after that. And it had all been worth it once I got here and set eyes on the ocean for the first time in my short life. Now I'm settling into the rhythm of the waves, letting my mind spiral into a serene calm when there's a crackling sound behind me. Someone curses. I jump, almost falling into a wave at the sudden expletive. Backing out of the water, I turn to find Darcy Williams, flat on her ass in the sand. She glares up at me. My soda looks a bit squashed, and I'm hit with the mental image of her stepping on the can and tumbling over. It takes real effort not to start laughing. Darcy's thunderous, unamused expression helps. Are you littering? She accuses me. I wasn't, I say, but I don't think I do a good enough job at keeping the laughter out of my voice. The remaining soda has spilled out of the can, a wet circle of sand beneath it. I might be now. The silence stretches on for far too long after that. Darcy glares at me pointedly, but I can't tell what she wants me to do. Go back to the water and pretend she was never here, or go back to the party, or leave the beach entirely? She doesn't get up either, sitting where she fell like it's a throne and not a sandy incline. It's strange to see her looking anything but meticulously put together. Her hair is slightly mussed from her fall, and her legs are akimbo, her skin glowing in the light of the setting sun. Well, Darcy finally says, scowling, aren't you going to take care of it? I will, I say obstinately. The waves have thoroughly buried me in sand up to my ankles. When I leave. Why don't you leave now? She seems to think, but she doesn't say it. Her eyes don't leave me, and I feel the tension rise in my shoulders. I stare right back. I was here first. If she wants to be alone, then it's her prerogative to find someplace else to wallow or sulk or whatever it is Darcy does when she's not trailing behind Lark like a guard dog. Darcy shows no sign of backing down, but she's biting her bottom lip like she's nervous. I can tell. It's shrunk in the last few seconds. It makes me wonder why she's out here. Is she escaping the party too? No. I shoved down any sympathy I might have for Darcy with a scowl, already formulating my response to her imposing silence. I don't finish my sentence because a wave smacks me straight onto my ass and I choke on sea foam instead. Oh, it surprised me. I curse myself. Never, ever turn your back on the ocean. God, that was like one of the first things I learned when I moved to Meriden. Why did I forget it now at a time when it could and did make me look stupid in front of Darcy? She sticks her hand in my face as I'm trying to blink the salt out of my eyes, somehow having materialized beside me. When I don't respond, she grabs my hand. Up, she orders me. Darcy's hand is warm and dry in mine, a comforting pressure as she hauls me out of reach of the waves. I shake myself, yanking my hand away. I got it, I say, clumsily regaining my balance on my own. Right, she drawls. Hasn't anyone ever told you never to turn your back on the ocean? Needles. Tiny little pins and needles jabbing into my pride.
Very good. Very good. All right.
Wow, all I can say is that for a brand new debut novel, is that the first time you've ever done a reading? Because it sure doesn't sound like it to me.
My dad is a lawyer who does depositions, and he was drilling me on it all last night.
Oh,
good job.
okay, because that was absolutely fabulous. And can you remind us again the title of the book and when it's coming out?
All That Pride, and it's coming out in September 2025.
Okay, and we'll have you back on the podcast so you can talk about it again. But
Yeah.
fabulous job.
Excellent story. All right. I have the pleasure of introducing our next author, Glenda Poulter. And Glenda has been writing poetry, short stories, and novels since she was 10 years old, well over a half a century. Slice of life novels with women who love women as her main characters are her specialty. Strong women with human weaknesses and foibles populate her stories along with their sometimes quirky friends. Her past published work include Welcome Home and Out of the Past, both currently out of print, although Out of the Past is still available as an ebook. Glenda lives in Central North Carolina with her longtime partner, Lisa, and the felines that rule their lives. I can understand that. She is the proud mother of a daughter and son and doting grandmother of two. Other interests include collecting seashells, the fiber arts, crochet, knitting, quilting, reading, and photography. Glenda seldom meets a stranger and strives to leave everyone she encounters with a smile. So, Glenda, you're on to do your reading.
Thank you. The name of my book is Never, excuse me, I do have a scratchy throat. It's Never Too Late. Saturday, instead of going to Beth's birthday party, I decided to be a recluse. But my pushy friends had other plans for me. I jumped when my doorbell rang mid-afternoon. I peeked through the peephole and groaned. Allison and her partner Beth stood on my front porch, as well as the 4 other people she told me would be at Beth's party. They each had a dish of food or a bag in their hands, except for Allison, who held an armful of flowers she picked from my flower beds. "I'm not home," I yelled through the door. Allison laughed while everyone else grinned. "In that case, we'll camp here on your front porch until you get home," she said. Everyone disappeared from view as they moved toward my rocking chairs. I pulled the curtain back just enough to see what they were doing. The motley crew scattered across my porch and yard. Allison caught me watching and put her face against the window. "Come on, Janny. Either open the door and let us in, or come out here and join us. But we're not leaving until Beth blows out the candles on her cake at sundown." I dropped the curt. "God damn it, Sandy," I whispered. "Why did you have to introduce me to these idiots?" The cool breeze brushed the back of my neck. "Okay, this once, but then I'm done with them." The breeze caressed my face and was gone. I opened the door to the cheers of my friends. They gathered the food and the wine, and I stepped aside to let them in. They each planted a kiss on my cheek as they passed me. Allison was last. She tried to hug me, but I stiffened and shook my head. I said. "I'm mad at you. I don't hug people I'm mad at." "Even people who bring you flowers?" Allison presented me with a bouquet of my own blossoms, which you ripped out of my garden without permission. But her grin and happiness was contagious, and I couldn't help but laugh as she tried once again to hug me. This time I let her. Beth slid an arm around my waist and kissed me on the cheek again. "I will not apologize for crashing in on you. We had a feeling you wouldn't come over tonight, so we brought the party to you." "Happy birthday." I gave her a hug. "It's good to see you again. How are you?" "I'm good." She gestured toward the front of the house. "Your green thumb is back. Sandy would love what you've done." I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. Beth rubbed my back before joining Allison and the others in the kitchen. Before I could join them, my cell phone rang. I stepped into the hallway to answer it. "Hi, Tam," I said. "Hi yourself. I'm calling to talk you into going to the community social with me." "I'm sorry, but a load of insanity arrived at my door a little bit ago." Raucous laughter echoed through the house. I couldn't see what was going on and wondered if I wanted to. "Oh, you have company." The disappointment in Tam's voice was palpable. "I'll let you go." "Wait a minute," I said. "These guys didn't warn me they were coming over. I was supposed to go to their house for dinner, but they decided I wouldn't show up. So they brought it over here, uninvited and unexpected. Would you like to join us?" They brought a lot of good food and more than a few bottles of wine. You can come and be the only ray of sanity and help keep me from killing any of them. Tam laughed, but she sounded nervous. Well, do you want to check with them first? I don't want to crash your party. It's my house, and that makes it my party, and I'm inviting you, so you won't be crashing it," I reasoned. More crazy laughter came from the other part of the house. "Oh, please come rescue me from these hooligans." Tam laughed again. "Why does it feel you're throwing me to the lions? But okay, I'll be there in a few minutes." "Hey," Allison found me still standing in the hall after I disconnected my call. "The hostess isn't supposed to disappear into thin air." "Who was on the phone?" "A neighbor. She wanted me to go to the community social with her. I invited her to join us instead. I hope you don't mind." Allison put her hand on her hip and cocked her head. "I thought you said you hadn't made any friends out here. You're keeping secrets, Janice Halston." "I barely know her. I met her one day when her granddaughter stopped to admire my flowers while I was working in the yard, and then I went to the little girl's birthday party. Please behave yourself. I think she's straight, but even if she is a lesbian, you know good and well I'm never going to have another relationship." She pulled me into a hug. "I'll be good, I promise. But I hope you change your mind about the relationship thing. I hate seeing you alone and lonely." "I'm not lonely." My doorbell rang, cutting off the rest of our old argument. I headed for the door, but Allison pushed past me and opened it herself. Everyone else came from the kitchen to see who had arrived. I groaned. Hi. Allison opened the storm door for Tam. I'm Allison, one of Janny's oldest friends. Believe nothing she says about me. It's all lies. A grin spread across Tam's face. You mean you're not the smartest, most giving and caring best friend a person could have? She winked at me. Well, okay. I refuse to believe it. The look on Allison's face was priceless as everyone burst into laughter. Tam stepped around Allison and gave me a hug. Good one, I said into her ear. You may have neutralized her.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
These, you guys just put me to shame. I don't know about Allie, but the first time I read, I was literally green and didn't do quite so well as y'all.
Yeah.
I have done readings before, and the first time I read, I was shaking so hard they couldn't understand what I was saying.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, last but not least, oh wait, before I do that, Glenda, can you remind us again, the title of the book is Never Too Late,
Never too
right?
late.
And it is coming out in August, right?
August 1st.
Great, perfect. Okay, last but not least, I have the pleasure of introducing our final new author. Katie M. Hall is a 40-something writer, researcher, and filmmaker. She is co-founder and former editor-in-chief of the Planet London family of websites and contributed hundreds of articles for the LBQT community, including book and film reviews, celebrity interviews, opinion pieces, and features between 2011 and 2015. Her writing can also be found in many issues of the UK-based Diva magazine. Katie's poems and short stories have been shortlisted for several national UK writing awards. Her poetry is included in the Arachne Press Anthologies Byways 2024 and Times Go By Turns 2020, and her short stories feature in various lesfic collections such as L is for ... 2014, and Lesfic Electric Volume 2, 2020. Katie is currently undertaking a PhD in creative writing at Kingston University, exploring queer memoir in theory and practice. Katie is the creator and screenwriter of the first London LBQ web series, the award-winning She's in London, and producer of the award-winning indie feature Under the Influencer. She is part of the producing team of a new documentary in production about the troubled teen industry in the US. Wow, that's impressive. I have to admit that I haven't yet, but I am going to look at your indie film and your series because I love watching those things. I'm constantly watching that stuff. So I'm excited to do that. I should have done it before, but
That's all right. I'll share the links with you. No worries.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that'd be great if you could share the link for us.
Of course.
All right, and you're off.
Thank you. So my novel is called To Autumn, and it's coming out in May this year. I'm going to give a very small context note because it's quite a British novel. So the main character, Robin, she's 16 and it's her birthday today. She's staying in a caravan park, kind of holiday park site in Devon, southwest England, with her little sister Anne and her grandmother. She's had a very mixed emotions in the day coming up to this scene, and she received a card from her mother who nearly died recently, but she also appreciates that her grandma and Anne have tried hard to make it quite a special day for her, and she's been spending her lunch times watching Neighbours, which is an Australian soap that British people absolutely adore, with a very gorgeous Australian student called Autumn, who happens to be a lifeguard at the caravan park swimming pool. So this scene picks up with Robin joining Autumn for today's episode of Neighbours. And apologise for the terrible Australian accent I'm about to do. Good day, happy birthday, sweet 16. The concrete in my stomach swells like a stone sponge full of everything I don't want to be feeling. Had a nice day? Lots of cards and prezzies, she says, nodding to the envelopes in my hand. I did all right. Ray-Bans, an old edition of Keats's letters from Grandma. I don't feel like talking, and I wonder if she notices. Nice. The sunnies suit you. Don't blush, Robin. Maybe I could come over and take a look at that old edition. I've only been able to read the crappy paperback of Keats's letters that they have in the uni library. I nod, not able to say no without looking like a twat. Well, Autumn continues, obviously not noticing my mood. I have a little something for you. Not quite as exciting as my main man Keats. I'll grab it from my locker after the episode. A flutter of excitement. Then I want to throw up. We walk into the building and I take deep breaths. The staff room is quiet again. I ask Autumn if I can make myself a cup of tea while she sets up the TV. I bring over a cup each and settle myself on the sofa. She joins me, and once again our sides meet in the middle. I try to lean to the left, towards the sofa arm, but that doesn't make any difference, and I just look like I'm fidgeting. I'm not able to pay any attention to whether Toadie will report Lou's stolen goods to the police. Not even neighbours can take my mind off things. And before I know it, the closing music is playing, and I've got no idea what happened. Autumn jumps up and bounces over to the set of battered lockers. She opens one and pulls out a small, neatly wrapped present. Here you go, sweet 16. Something I thought you might like. She passes it over, and I start to unwrap it carefully. Autumn laughs. I haven't got you a stick of dynamite. You don't need to be delicate. She says, I forget that other people's parents don't make them open wrapping paper with the intention of saving it, never to be used again. I rip the last piece off to reveal a cassette. The cover bears a hand-drawn cartoon of me sitting at the pool, reading with my headphones on. I made you a mixtape. You always have your Walkman on whenever I see you sunbathing. I thought you might like some new music to try. These are most of my favorites, but they're songs I think you'll like too. I turn the case over and there's a handwritten track list on the back. I've listed all the songs and the artists. Like I said, my favorites, and all the artists that are essential playlist material, if you know what I mean. I don't know what she means. The list's mainly full of people I've never heard of, with weird names like Horse or Melissa Etheridge or the Indigo Girls or Annie DeFranco. There's a couple on there I do know though, K.D. Lang, Joan Armour Trading, Justy Springfield. They're all women. A penny starts to drop. They're not just women. They're women with something in common, if comments my parents have made over the years are anything to go by. Are these all lesbian singers? I whisper. Absolutely. If you haven't heard of many, think of it as a starter list. But why would I want a lesbian singer starter list? I say, still whispering despite the panic rising quickly through me. Well, you know, because you're a... Autumn cuts off in response to the look of horror on my face. Woman. Do you think I'm a lesbian? I say, no longer holding a whisper. Still clutching the cassette, I run out of the room before she has a chance to answer.
Oh, enjoyed reading that. So,
Yes.
are you guys ready for some questions?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
All right.
Annette, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that I was going to ask a real quick question about the two neighbors. Is that's actually there's actually a show? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't suppose you can get it in the US, can you?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime now. So
Oh, is it? Okay. All
yeah,
right.
it's a very long story. It's been going for nearly 40 years. And
Okay.
it got dropped, but Amazon Prime picked it up, so you can watch it in the US now.
Perfect.
And they've got
got-
a back catalogue of episodes as well. So
Okay, I think I'm just gonna have to check it out just for fun's sake. I thought,
Yeah.
I thought it might be, and I have to grin at the list of female artists. They're all artists that I love.
Yeah, they're all great artists, absolutely.
Okay, so we're absolutely honored to introduce you readers out there to all of our brand new authors here. So we want you each to tell us a little more about yourself, stuff that isn't in your bio, stuff that nobody knows yet until you share it with us right now. And whoever is willing to jump in, go for it.
I guess I'll start. I suffer from several chronic illnesses and am pretty much mobility challenged, which would seem like it would give me lots of time to write. But I discovered through some self-reflection that I do almost all my writing in November during the 50,000 word
Right.
challenges.
Nano, yeah.
But since 2012, I haven't done anything with those writings. At the end of November, I was through writing. I put it in a file, and that was that. I lost my muse to a tragedy, and she wasn't there to encourage me, so I didn't do anything. And not this past year, but 2020, 2023, I realized, why am I writing if I'm not going to do anything with it? So I spent the whole year last year going through all of those writings, completing some of them, which never too late is one of, giving them to beta readers. And then I said, well, if I'm going to all this trouble, I'm going to see if one can be published. And here I am. So that's me in a nutshell.
Great. Well, glad you started writing again. Good for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Livia, you.
Sure, yeah. I was stumped by this one, which you think this would be like the easiest question to answer. I love a bit of an adventure, apparently. I decided a few years ago, so I'm from California, but I decided instead of going to one of the UCs or University of California, which I think my parents would have preferred, that I wanted to go to college in Canada. So I ended up at the University of Calgary, and I'm an English major. And I just discovered that I only have room, like with like the rules on the classes you can take and the credits you need, I can only take 2 more English classes. I've got a year left on my degree, and I'm like, what? Why? Like, I'm an English major. I want to take the English classes. You're making me take other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's like my current dilemma. I'm just shocked. I'm shocked.
Wow. So, and you didn't even go to like British Columbia, which would have been closer, right? Calgary is like, isn't that way over or mid?
Well, Calgary's in Alberta, so it's like northeast a little bit of where California is. It's like right over like Montana-ish.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Katie?
Yeah,
What little nugget?
I never thought I'd write a novel. I always used to write scripts and screenplays, and loads of poetry, an occasional short story, and I never anticipated writing a novel. And then I did my master's in creative writing, started in 2017, and something just came really early on in that process, and that's where I started to autumn. But yeah, I never really thought it was something as a writer even that I would do. I don't want to say lazy writer, but I like writing kind of lean and short pieces, and so a novel felt like a big stretch. But then this story kept developing, and I found the character, and I loved her, and I just thought she deserved like a much longer piece to tell her journey.
Yeah, I mean, there's some writers, I'm one of them, who is like heavy dialogue, and it probably is not as difficult to make the transition from a screenwriter to a novel if you're a heavy dialogue writer and not the flowery prose. I mean, I get bored with flowery prose, but you made the transition really well. I remember reading that, and I think Allie probably will say the same thing. I think we right away said, "Yep, go sign this person." We were frankly surprised that you signed with Affinity. We're like, wow, because you could really tell. In fact, all of you, we could really tell that you had creative writing experience because it wasn't rough like some of the submissions that we get.
Yeah. Your 3 books were probably one of the few that I have just sat down and I just couldn't put down. I mean, I finished them within a 24-hour period, because you're very engaging characters. So we really look forward to that.
And well written.
Very well. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're excited that we've got a new subgenre coming out with the YA. And can you tell us why you chose to write a YA story?
Well, when I started writing it, I was a junior, about to be a senior, in high school, and I was trapped in the COVID lockdown. It was, like, right around that time period, just reading so many YA books. So when I started writing, I don't think I was consciously thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna write this genre, that genre." It was what I knew, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I don't think I chose YA. I think the story kind of chose me, and I just wrote it really like the first draft without thinking, where does it sit? And then I had this dilemma of, is it YA or is it something else? And I don't even know if I've got to the answer of that. But I think I really wanted it to appeal to young people and kind of have it's almost historical fiction, even though it's set in the 90s. It's got that kind of history of being young in the 90s to it, which was really important to me. But I think I was writing it like for myself as a reader who loves to read about that decade when I was young, coming out and a teenager. And I thought, oh, I hope this also appeals, to people who shared some of those experiences as well.
Yeah, I think technically anything 25 years or older is considered historical fiction, which is absolutely alarming to me. I mean, it's like I graduated from college in the 80s, so I mean, it's like horrific to go, oh my gosh, your youth, your college experiences is considered historical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what prompted each of you to write that first novel? I know, Glenda, this one isn't your first novel, so.
No, it's not. Um, when my partner Lisa and I first got together way back in the history of the early part of the century, 2006, one of the things she asked me as we were getting to know each other is, what is one thing you've always wanted to do that you haven't done yet? And I said, I want to write a book. And she just stared at me for a moment. She goes, well, why haven't you? And I said, because I'm not that good a writer. She said, write me a book. So I said, okay. And I would sit down and I wrote her a book, which ended up being Welcome Home, which was the first book that was published by PD Publishing. They've been out of business for quite a while now, but they gave me my start, and I'll always be grateful to them for that. Mm-hmm. And I cried like a baby when they retired. And not because my book was going to be unpublished, but because I was going to miss two very special people.
Right.
So, but Lisa, my darling love, is why I wrote my first novel. She said, write me a book. So I wrote her a book. I've been writing her books ever since.
Sure. I think we already heard, Katie, your story about what prompted you to write yours. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I thought it was something really funny to say and I've forgotten what it was. So we'll just
come back to it later. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Livia, do you want to add anything?
It was a goal that I made for myself during COVID because ever since I was a little kid, I had these stories in my head and they never got written down or they got written down, but it never got to like a complete form. So I gave myself the goal. I wanted to finish an actual book length piece before I graduated high school. So
good for you. Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so how did you find Affinity Rainbow Publications and why specifically did you decide to submit with us?
I just started researching for lesbian sapphic publishers and I knew I wanted to go with a smaller press because of my experience with PD Publishing and how close they were and everybody was friends and everybody knew each other. and we could lean on each other and call on each other. And I like the idea of being with a small press again. So when I started researching Affinity Press, I said, that sounds like home. And so that's why I submitted with y'all. So that's my story.
Katie, what brought you to us?
Yeah, I had sent the book out to agents in the UK, and didn't get picked up. I had like various bits of positive feedback along the way, and then one agent said to me, if you make the book more commercial, we'd consider taking it on. And I thought, that's not what I want. I don't want to make this book more commercial. I stand by it as it is. So then I thought, okay, that's maybe not the right route at the moment. So I wanted to look for an indie press, and I'm a member of a lot of those Facebook groups, and I saw Affinity posting and being kind of really proactive on the Facebook groups and social media. So that was how I learned about you. And yeah, that was what I thought. When I then went to the website and had a look, I thought that sounds kind of like people I'd want to work with. I was a bit nervous because young YA fiction wasn't on the list. It was sort of and it sort of stressed contemporary lesbian fiction, and I thought, well, this isn't quite contemporary, and it's also more young adult focused, but I'm going to send it anyway. And there we go.
We're glad you did.
Thank you.
And Olivia, what brought you to Affinity?
Well, I tried doing the like querying with agents and stuff a couple years ago, but it kind of like discouraged me a bit. So I did end up like letting the book sit for a little while just because I was starting school. So I was quite busy with that and couldn't figure out a way to balance it with everything.
Yeah.
But over this past summer, I was like, okay, it's been long enough. I got to do something with it. And my dad was actually working with one of Affinity's authors, Kale Gallagher, over
Kale,
the
yeah.
summer. Yeah, and at some point, he mentioned to her that I think they were like chatting, and he mentioned that I had written something, and I ended up speaking with her a couple of times about her experience writing and her experience getting published, and she recommended that I submit to Affinity. So I was like, yeah, why not? And I did. So
Yeah. Well, I think Glenda hit the nail on the head. You're home. We are very family oriented. We have authors in South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, and then across the United States. But it's a very welcoming environment, and any of us will give you the shirt off our back, so to speak, and helping you, because we weren't young authors, but we were authors that were, kicking out our first books. And, it's just been a pleasure to work with Affinity, across the years. And I hope you will enjoy that and feel comfortable enough to, if you don't understand something or you need some more information, to reach out to us and, let us walk you through it.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to new authors looking for a publisher? Especially sapphic authors, because I think it's different for, like you said, my guess is that code word for make it more marketable was turn it into a straight.
Yeah.
Well, I went through the questions when y'all sent us the script and wrote down all my answers because my nerves were like, oh my God, I'm not going to remember any of this. And I wrote down, I said, do your homework. I said, read every word on every website that you're considering publishers, read every word, and especially the submission policies. And the second most important piece of advice I give us to be sure your book fits with the other types of books they publish. But Katie, you didn't do that, and it worked out for you. So that piece of advice doesn't always work.
Well, I mean, it fit in many ways. So
It was sapphic,
it's sapphic, and I don't know, like it felt like it fit within the whole library of books in terms of like approach and values and things. And I think that was really important.
Yeah. Olivia, do you have any advice for new authors looking for a publisher? Besides
To be
asking your
honest,
dad?
I still feel like I'm like that new author, just like scrambling around a bit. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, wait, I'm getting published? What? So I really like, I don't know if I have any advice, but I definitely recommend just like in general connecting with other authors and writers, like whether they're published and like successful or just friends that enjoy writing, because building that writing community for yourself is really important. And I found that it has definitely helped me a lot. So
I'd add to what Glenda said, like read some of the books that the publisher sells as well. Get to know their authors and the kind of books that they produce, and just read as much as you can anyway. Like know where you want your book to sit in the market and who your readers might be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's what got me to Affinity. I mean, I blame Allie because I read some of her books and I really liked her books. And I also liked a lot of J.M. Dragon and the previous co-owner, Aaron O'Reilly, who has since passed away. But absolutely reading other people's books, particularly in the publisher, helps you decide whether this is a good fit for you or not. Yeah.
Olivia, did KL give you her story of how she came
yeah,
to us?
the one that you co-wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but I do have a copy.
good.
So
Yeah,
It's a good
we
book.
we I was part of a fundraiser for a fellow author that had some medical issues, and KL won one of my competitions was to name a future character of mine. And when she won that, we got to talking, and I asked her to tell me a little bit more about her thoughts about this character. Well, she starts spitting out this whole plot. It's like, no, you write this. I can't write this. I can't write this. I said, yes, you can. So we decided we would write together. And because I know, coming from Florida, I know squat about hockey. And it's, she grew up playing hockey, and it's like, okay, you got to teach me hockey before we can write this book. But it was a great opportunity for me to help mentor her, and she's a fantastic young writer. And I really enjoyed the experience. And if you haven't read the book, you need to read it because it's a really good book. And fantastic debut for her.
Yep.
yeah, I love the hockey romance too. So it's just I haven't had the time. So
Yeah.
Okay, tell us your writing experience from start to finish. What was the most challenging part of writing that very first novel?
For me, the most challenging was actually to sit down and do it, because at the time Lisa challenged me to write the book, I was extremely active. I was a competitive walker. My kids were still young adults. Now they're just adults. They're no longer young adults. But and my mother was dying of cancer. So I was very busy and very absorbed with other things. So it was a matter of actually sitting down and finding the time to write. That was I wrote during my lunch break at work more than any place else. But the way I get started, well, Work from Home is slightly autobiographical, so it was pretty easy to get the idea to write. But since then, I get most of my ideas from eavesdropping. I love to go out and sit in a restaurant, and poor Lisa's trying to talk to me while I'm listening to the people behind me. And news stories, especially really obscure news stories, the little local interest stories. That's where I get a lot of my ideas. And also now, as I'm an older writer, because I'm 66, I'm trying to write more from my point of view instead of the younger people's point of view. And I'm finding it extremely difficult, even though I'm living that right now. And I also have lost friends to domestic violence, so I'm trying to touch on that. And I'm trying to touch on mental health and how important it is to take care of our mental health, especially if you have a chronic illness. So that's where I get most of my ideas. Then, like I said, I have time to write, but I'm also a knitter and a quilter and a reader. And so I still sometimes have a struggle finding the time to write, although I have all the time in the world to write. So I don't know if that answered the question, but there you go.
Yeah, I agree. Like, even it's so easy to make excuses to not sit down and write. Like it's and so that for me was the biggest battle. And I think this novel, it was written in two halves, really. So I did like the first half during my master's where I'd given myself that time and space to write, and then that finished and I started my PhD. But then in 2022, I did a research placement in Toronto. So I had very few distractions, and I literally, for the second half of the book, sat down, said I wrote 350 words every day, and most of the time I wrote more than 350 words, and I just finished. I just went through it and finished.
Good.
For this one, my little sister was a huge part of it. She was a teenager. She was like beginning teens, 13 or 14. And she was actually the one I was like, what should I write? And she said, write me a book with girls kissing. So I was like, okay. And she would just get on my case about every chapter. We had this whole complicated system with like chores where a chapter was worth Beatrice doing the dishes for a week straight, or the litter box, or something like that. So I was like slamming out chapters just to be able to be like, hey, you do this for me, I give you a chapter. But yes, that wasn't a difficulty. She's traumatized now. She's like, you held chapters hostage. I'm never reading anything that's not complete from you ever again. So,
Oh,
but yeah.
That's a good system. That's kind of
oh,
like
yeah.
Allie and I, when we write together, like it's like we push each other. I send her a chapter and then she's like, she has to feel like she has to send one back right away. That's how we have written our books together. We're terrible for each other. We're so
Yeah.
competitive. All right.
All right. What's been the most challenging or your biggest lesson from this experience writing and publishing your first book? Anything you do differently?
I'd sit down and write more on a more regular basis. And instead of, I'm a natural born editor. I want everything right the first time I write it. So I have tried to teach myself to get the story out of my system and into the computer without going back and rereading and fixing and changing. And for me, that is so hard because I want it right now. So
Did
my biggest
using
lesson
the
is to write it front to end before doing the editing.
did Nano help you with that? Because that's the purpose of Nano.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. When that's how I learned to do that was through NaNoWriMo.
Okay.
I was sorry to see them go downhill the way they have the last couple of years, but they were that system was extremely helpful in helping me learn to write and write consistently. If only for 30 days, I wrote consistently.
Right.
So
Yeah, I found the editing quite challenging as well. Like I think I have something like 16 different drafts of this novel that I went through before I got it to a place where I was satisfied by it. And to be honest, if it came to it, I could probably go back and make even more edits just because I don't know, that like little perfectionism in me is just like got to get it perfect. But I definitely have to like train myself out of, especially on that first draft, like Glenna was saying, like just nitpicking, writing a sentence. Oh wait, gotta erase it, gotta rewrite it to get the phrasing exactly right. But yeah.
I have a feeling you and Annette are going to get along just fine.
Yeah, yeah, I have a whole, but you know, you're right. I don't nitpick until after I get the first draft out of my head. And I think that is, I mean, that's good. That's a good advice that somebody gave me, because otherwise you just get lost in nitpicking to death and
Yeah.
you never, so now I just get it out of my head and then I go back and then I go back and nitpick, and I nitpick a lot after I go back through it. How about you, Katie? Lessons?
I think for me, I got really stuck in, like I said before, who I'm writing for and what's the audience for this book. And then to get finished, I just started focusing on writing for me and writing the story I was happy with and the way I wanted to write, and kind of staying authentic to that, and not worrying about the other stuff. The other stuff can be either it's not important in the end, or you can fix that in editing as well. But yeah, remembering to write for me as me first, and then everything else should fall into place after that.
How do you build the tension in a story without giving it up too much? How do you keep that reader intrigued in the story?
I tend to write with a lot of flashbacks in my stories. So a lot of the foreshadowing uh, helps build the tension to get to that flashback. And so that's my two ways to build tension is through flashbacks and through foreshadowing. So
Those are good things for thrillers too. Flashbacks and foreshadowing. Yep. Katie or Olivia?
I don't write thrillers. I've tried to write thrillers and mysteries and I suck at them. So I just stick with the slice of life stuff.
I love thrillers.
Yeah, but tension is it's in every story, or every good story, I think. I think that, yeah, there's something about revealing information at the right moment and not necessarily playing all your cards first. And I remember one of the discussions I had with my MA group was, we kind of called it the Jaws thing. Like, do you reveal the shark immediately, or do you save it for later? And kind of thinking it in that way was helpful, of when and is the right time to reveal key information. Yeah. And then the other thing advice I had was keep it contained. So originally I was going to span the story over a lifetime. And then I thought, what if I make it over a summer vacation, and keep it contained to one location, and kind of create a pressure cooker. And that really, I think, helped build tension as well.
I like to do a lot of like sort of little pieces of foreshadowing, like really specific to like down to the word choice. Like when I with particular characters, like for example, if I have a villain that it's not immediately clear to the narrator, and it shouldn't be immediately clear to like to the reader that this person is the villain of the piece or someone that we're not meant to sympathize with, rather than like outright like saying it, maybe I would use like some more violent word choice for their actions or just descriptions of them in general, just to kind of like get that little like make the reader a little bit wary of the character, I guess. But yeah, just like foreshadowing like that sort of thing.
Okay.
Do you have like favorite go-to conflicts or complications?
Like I said earlier, mental health and how lacking it can affect a person and the people around them is something I've been paying more attention to the older I get, and struggling with my own mental health and watching my family struggle with mental health has given me a lot of ammunition. That's not the right word, but for me, it gives me something to write about. And so that's really the struggle I write about the most here lately.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I really like the miscommunication trope. Specifically when it's done with a focus like on how different characters' worldviews simply don't line up, like less of just a sort of, oh, I thought you said this, but you really said that, but more, I heard you say this, and to you it meant this thing, but to me it meant this thing. And then to solve this sort of sorry, to solve this miscommunication, the characters need to open their minds and like bond a little bit to gain that better understanding of each other by the end.
Yeah, I think that's actually a more sophisticated way to look at miscommunications, because I think the pushback on miscommunications is it's more about, oh my gosh, can't they just have a conversation, versus, oh no, they had the conversation, but your worldview of that conversation is different from your worldview of that conversation, which is a much more sophisticated and nuanced way to represent miscommunication, which I think is to your credit. I think people like that. Katie, do you have a favorite trope, conflict, whatever?
Yeah, I think there's something about that particularly in this novel, Into Autumn, the denial. Like the character does know what she wants, but for various reasons, she tries to deny herself accepting that she's a lesbian, and she feels like because she thinks that's the right thing to do. And I think that conflict between what someone wants and choosing to do what they think is the right thing, and trying to please other people is the kind of the basis for this story, and also a good basis for conflict as well.
Very good. How much research do you do for a book?
Google is my best friend. That's all there is to it. If I have a character traveling from North Carolina to Texas, I need to know what is the mileage on that? How long does it take them to get there? So that the story between Texas and South Carolina or North Carolina or wherever they're going is authentic. They're not just suddenly in the car and all of a sudden they're there, because that's not how travel works.
Right.
So, and my current book has a character in it who has been through a traumatic car accident with severe injuries. So if anybody looks at my history, they would think that I was the one in it, because I've been researching injuries and how people cope with them and their treatment. And my history would look very strange right now. So.
Understood.
Yeah, I like the granular research as well. And I spent a lot of time, I looked at weather reports for the period that my book is set, and I looked up the actual TV listings of Neighbours so I could have like the reflection on the story of that going on, right? And geographical locations and things too. Like, yeah, there was all of that stuff was available if I looked hard enough, which was interesting. But being accurate about that stuff was really important.
Yeah, I've done the same. Looked up, weather and at that time, and
it can be a rabbit hole, though.
It can be a rabbit hole.
Well, you have to be careful not to let it distract you from the actual writing.
Yeah, if you write thrillers, you get all kinds of interesting things that you look into, like guns and how to kill people and all that kind of stuff, which is really sick. What about you, Olivia? A lot of research for yours, or no, based on personal experience?
I am so bad at research. Like, it is my absolute downfall. So I'll just start writing and I'll keep writing around like the gaps in my knowledge until like I just cannot anymore and I need to go look something up. But I also like, if I do need to research something, because I've just kind of kept writing around it, I'll do a lot of my research after the fact, like retroactively, like For example, with my current work in progress, I started writing, realized halfway through that I need to know way more about birds than I do to like write this main character. So now I'm like trying to kind of incorporate that in the latter half of the book, but I'm definitely going to have to do a bunch of research and then go back and insert it in later edits in the first half.
Awesome. All right.
So I know Glenda did a lot in using personal experiences as a part of her novel, but what about you, Katie and Livia? Did you use personal? I mean, it seems like always there's a part of ourselves in books, but were there actual specific scenes that you really used, grabbed from some kind of personal experience?
I mean, it's definitely not autobiographical or semi-autobiographical, but there are, like, we used to go to those kind of caravan holiday parks when we were younger. There's like very small specific things, and my favorite one is that there's a scene where the younger sister does a fancy dress costume, like prize, and her grandmother dresses her as a matchstick, in like with a white costume and a pink swimming cap. And my mum did that to me. So that's kind of, it's things like that. So it's not like autobiographical, but there's elements definitely of my real experience in there.
Yeah, my family also, like, we would do summer vacations down in Southern California at the beach and that sort of thing. And I always loved the ocean and doing like swimming and all that sort of thing. So I did share that with my main character. That's probably the biggest thing. But the rest of it, I think if any of my other personal experiences, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if any of them are included, it's like background details just to kind of create a fuller story and make it seem more real, I suppose.
So were you ever knocked on your ass by a wave?
Yes, that did happen to me many times.
All right. Do you guys have another work in progress?
Too many. I have so many in progress right now, but the ones I wrote from since 2012, where I quit trying to get things published, I've got all of those. Plus, I've got like 5 ideas bouncing around in my head that I'm making notes on, and got short starts to. Whether any of them actually go anywhere or not remains to be seen. But yes, I do have many projects in progress.
That's good. Okay. Katie, Livia?
Yeah, I've got several, but the main one I'm working to finish this year is my PhD, and the creative aspect of that is a memoir about queer friendship and friendship between women, and the importance of that as a kind of act of resistance, and how we can empower ourselves. So it's micro chapters about lots of different friendship stories, and hopefully, I don't know, it's a bit experimental. There's lots of poetry in there as well as prose and different kinds of writing, but yeah, I'm hoping to finish that this year.
So a memoir.
Do you think you'll tie a story into the troubled teen population here in the US?
I think, yeah, it's interesting to see. I haven't thought about that actually. The documentary itself, that I'm working on is based on my friend's real experience and her interviewing people that went there, and she's the director of the piece. I haven't thought about it in terms of my own writing, but I have absolutely no doubt it will influence something. It's having a huge impact on me, learning about what goes on there, and the experiences that hundreds of thousands of people have gone through and how wrong it is. And yeah, I'm very sure it'll influence something that I write.
And it's probably going to get a lot worse. So there'll be plenty of material, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, but we need people to talk about it.
We do.
Yeah, to change things. Yeah.
Yes. Liv?
Yeah, I'm working on something that's like a little bit inspired by the musical Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812, which is inspired by War and Peace. So it's probably not going to resemble either of them by the time I'm done with it, but that's where the original idea came from.
Okay.
Is it going to be sapphic or no?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Of course.
Excellent. All right, last final question. Pantster or plotter? Do you know what a pantster
I'm
and a plotter is?
I'm a plantster.
You're a
I
pantster.
I I keep a lot of notes. I make a lot of notes. I have notebook after notebook of ideas and plots that I think would be interesting. But then when I start writing, it's I don't want to say stream of consciousness, but I don't really pay much attention to the notes that I spend a lot of time taking. And my story ends up being a completely different character from the notes I made. So I kind of use both because taking the notes gets me ready and wanting to write, but then I forget to look at the notes. So
Oh,
I call
girlfriend, you're
myself,
not a plantster. You're a pantster.
Yeah.
Just admit to it.
yeah, I'm more
You're a
I am
pantster that kind of thinks they should be a plantster, like, but no, just embrace that pantster.
yes, I agree.
Pantser or plotter?
I'm a plotter. I cannot do the pantsing thing. I have to have my outlines and then
Okay.
I look at them, I write a little bit, I look at them some more.
Okay.
I
You're
think
a
I
lot
lean.
more.
Oh, sorry. I lean more towards pantster. I think don't have the patience for copious notes and outlines. Although, like Glenda, I have the intention of that, and maybe I'll do some of the thinking, but probably won't look back at it ever again.
And once the characters start, they just kind of have a mind of their own.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, Lisa gets frustrated with me because I'll be sitting here knitting and just like while I'm knitting is when all my ideas come to me. I'll write most of my books in my head while I'm knitting, and she'll talk to me and she'll have to get my attention like 3 times, and she'll say, "What are you doing?" I'll say, "I'm writing." So
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it's been such a delight talking with all three of you. Is there any last things you want to share with the people who are going to view this out there? Any last thoughts that you want to tell folks?
I'd just like to say thank you, Ali and Annette. You've made us feel really welcome, and I'm really excited about joining the Affinity Rainbow family. And so I guess I would say to people to check out all the books and, get reading and yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
I'd like to echo what she said. And thank you so much. I have been a nervous wreck about doing this. My daughter and I Zoomed this morning so I could get used to doing a Zoom, and Lisa has been absolutely amazing. Had a horrible nightmare last night about this. So thank you for making this a lot easier and more comfortable than what I was afraid it was going to be.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that it was more of a conversation and you felt welcome.
Yeah.
Liv, anything else that you want to add?
Just more thanks to pile on top of theirs. This was quite lovely, and I was also stressed. I had my dad quizzing me on all the questions last night. He's like, "No, you can't say it like that. You got to do it this way." With his lawyer brain on, thinking of all those depositions. He's treating me like a client.
No. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong.
Tell Daddy he did a good job.
You did, yeah. And don't worry, because now that we've got you on here, we're going to ask you back. So keep that in mind. Katie will have you in May.
Great.
Olivia will have you in September, right? And Glenda in August. So we'll have you back to continue to talk about the books. And I hope all of you out there look for the books that are coming out in May, August, and September from these three fabulous new writers who are, I'm really going to say that we are very fortunate that you joined our team because you're
Absolutely.
all quality, brand new authors for us.
Thank
Allie,
you.
anything else you want to say?
Nope, just thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure to get to know a little bit about each of you, your very different personalities and different stories. And I think they're all three going to be very successful. And I look forward to doing whatever I can to help you continue that success moving down the line.